r/ask Reddit. What do you think that popular culture will romanticize about the 2010s? That one summer when Pokemon Go was being played by everyone. Edit. RIP inbox. I sometimes look back on that summer with a sad nostalgia. For about a month everybody was outside having fun with their friends almost every day. Edit. Gone from Reddit for 30 minutes. Came back to 40 messages in my inbox. Glad to see so many others feel the same though. My greatest memory is during the height of it. There was an event where every Pokestop in the downtown section of town would be lured, and this was an area with a stop every 50 feet. There was hundreds of people there, just chatting about Pokemon and hanging out. One popular corner with 3 stops in range, where you would chill and sit on the sidewalk, was just packed. You could see a never-ending sea of people laughing about Pokemon. Dense as a concert and 10 times as friendly. I remember someone shouting out Haunter, and a minor stampede, and I remember a continuous cry of Bulbasaur, echoing through the streets, until it reached me, 4 blocks away, whereat, I shouted, and I heard the people in front of me relay the message, until I heard the telephone reply and started walking. It's the kind of thing where if I went back in time and told 14-year-old me about it, my younger self might believe the time travel part was real, but would never believe the rest. Dreams of internet stardom. YouTube, Instagram, blogging, whatever. The internet equivalent of being a garage band aiming for musical success. Dreams of becoming an app millionaire. Or a SoundCloud rapper. Struggling with financial debt and emotional anxiety, we'll all be portrayed as underdogs with dreams. When I was your age, we would take out loans just to go to the grocery store and then have a cry on the way home. In the 2010s we used to take out loans to pay off our loans. If it becomes decriminalized in the near future, weed prohibition. Kind of like how people think speakeasies were super cool. It's the same as us lighting up and chilling. Oh great. Does that mean there will be concept weed bars in the future that will look like dingy living rooms where you have to hang out with your annoying dealer and listen to his stories and let him smoke some of your bud? Edit. RIP inbox. Memes. Yeah, in the 2010s memes stopped being a nerd culture thing and went mainstream. Before Pepe had its more political association there was a whole meme about the Pepe market crashing because celebrities were posting images of the frog. People are now calling themselves memelords in broad daylight. Or archaeologists will uncover a meme museum. Netflix and chill? Back then, men were gentlemen and knew how to treat women. Back in our day we just swiped right. Driving. I think there will come a time when driving your own car on the freeway will seem terrifying to many Americans. But that's something that will be handled by computers that are much safer at it than a person. Back in my day, we had to trust that other drivers wouldn't kill us, me, in the year 2060. This thread is making me nostalgic for a time period that's not even over yet. And just think, every time period you could ever feel nostalgic about also had lots of shit that's been forgotten, too. That's called gratitude. The emergence of YouTube personalities across all mediums of information and entertainment. Holy shit, I never even thought about this, but you're right. We're totally gonna see movies about kids with a dream trying to make it big on YouTube. Like we currently have movies about people trying to make it as an actor slash singer slash whatever. ICarly was already a thing. All the chemicals in the water turning the frogs gay. That's why I drink diet water. I only drink the finest free-range organic water. I am pre-cable TV. I think there will be a generation marked by post-cable TV. And this, remember the olden days when you had to wait a whole week to watch the next episode of your favorite TV show? I haven't watched scheduled TV for over a decade. Remember when we had to wait 6 months for a Marvel movie? Men wearing suits with beards and undercuts. Honestly, the whole hipster thing I really like. Well trimmed and clean is so much better than looking sloppy. I was gonna say, the undercut hairstyle looks pretty good. I transitioned to it after my medical discharge from the army. It's basically just a high and tight with a little more fun on top. Remember all that clean water they had? And no worries about raiders. Who worries about raiders? They're moving to Vegas anyway and will probably do well for themselves. You need at least 2,000 caps to get into Vegas. Have you ever met a raider with more than a handful of caps and a tire iron to their name? People meeting their spouse on Tinder. Or their dad on Grindr. Pretty sure that's a different type of daddy. Tonight, We Are Young by Fun will be played in all the movie prom scenes about the era. 30 years from now. That song already makes me feel nostalgic. It has that nostalgic vibe to it. I have the same feeling some of Bruno Mars' recent songs will have the same effect as the new old school R&B decades from now. Man. Do you remember when we had to do everything with a separate device? You were ducked if you lost it. I'm glad everything's just in my head these days. But I miss the times when you could just put it down. Strangely enough, nobody did at the time. I remember this Black Mirror episode. So all of them. Instagram, or Facebook as people is suggesting, just like they do now with MySpace. I remember when we used to film everything, even if in the future will be even worse, and post it on my stories, and all the girls used to do the duck face, while the boys posted mirror selfies. Oh sweetie, you granddad sent me a DM after liking my photos for a week. I wasn't really sure about him at the time. Facebook seems to be heading that way even faster. How romantically low the background radiation was. Remember when the water levels hadn't swallowed Florida? Those were the days. Nana, what's Florida? A magical place full of men high on toiletries eating each other's faces. Long since lost to the sea. Sounds for the best. Yes, child. Now recite the 3 sacred words. Don't go outside. Every recent decade is known for their idea of futuristic. Think about it. If I say I have a sci-fi movie from the 40s, you know it's going to be giant monsters and mad scientists. 50s, it's all guys in costumes acting like aliens. 60s saw 2001 and so on. 70s saw Star Wars and Alien. You know exactly what movies are from the 80s. Now we have the Apple minimalism as our futuristic style. Sleek white surfaces, lens flares, flat sans serif fonts. 20-30 years from now you'll say let's watch that old tens move and everyone will know exactly what kind of movie you're suggesting. Edit. Alright, I get it, my examples aren't the best. However, also think about things like color scheme, camera angles, plot points and conventions, characters, etc. For example, what's the difference between Contact and Arrival? Edit 2. Better example, Star Trek. Check out each series for a pretty accurate feel for 60s, 80s, 90s, 0s and 10s sci-fi. Apple's design of the iPhone was based on 2001. I thought that was interesting to note. And the most recent update of the iOS was based on Hello Kitty. This will definitely go down as the golden age of television shows and TV series. There are so many amazing options right now that it's easy to forget how one really big and good show was unusual. I think it really started to change when AMC got Mad Men and Breaking Bad. Those were the first major hits that weren't on the major networks or HBO that I can remember. Glad we pulled out of the reality TV death spiral. Oh, that's still going strong. They're just not all Survivor spoofs anymore. Back then, people could actually leave their tracking devices at home when they didn't feel like giving companies all of their information. I think they're already at the point of willingly giving companies everything in return for convenience. One can do all sorts of things with just one Google account. Amazon has intricate data on our tastes and behavior. Facebook knows more about us than we even know. We pay to put their listening devices in our homes. I feel like any of those 3 companies could use that information to overthrow whole governments if they wanted to. Every politician uses at least some of these services. I'm sure the Google or whoever else has plenty of sensitive personal data on them. I read in another thread how 20 years from now hipsters will ironically wear MAGA trucker hats. So that the way they wear Reagan Morning in America hats now, I kinda doubt that in 20 years the culture wars of today will be a major concern for kids who aren't even born yet. It occurred to me that if Trump lost it might not be a bad move to buy 100 of those hats dirt cheap and put them away for 20 years from now, but then he won. Probably the resurgence of board games and card games. I imagine everything in the future will be augmented reality, and everybody will be nostalgic for when all sat around a table and played Cards Against Humanity. But board and card games are back in now because we already have augmented reality and video games and the internet and phones. And people now are nostalgic for the time when we didn't have all that and sat around a table playing card games. Imagine someone of the future going through the archives and reading this stuff. That would be pretty cool. If you're from the future reading through this, hello. Suck a dong future broad. Back in my day, you paid one price and got the whole internet. The Obama and Trump presidencies. Probably Obama as being quiet and unflappable and Trump for saying dumb things. Millennials being young and picked on in popular media. Which millennials will come to dominate shortly, and the generations after millennials not understanding their anger. Baby boomers being awful. The transgenerational resentment is real, not to mention Generation Z and whoever comes next not understanding the disdain. The near constant superhero movies. Beards and hipsters, tons of tattoos, undercuts, black rimmed glasses, mermaid hair, and the half-shaved head look. Every place was a craft brewery or a vape shop for a while there. Vaping in general. Facebook. The generations after millennials not understanding their anger. I dunno. The high school kids in Gen Z are kicking ass with their activism so far. They're just as angry as millennials and even more so because they've grown up in this world while millennials got beaten down by it. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Gen Z is already starting to get a taste of just how selfish the baby boomers are. Plus, the damage done by baby boomers, economy wrecked, global warming, isn't going to magically go away when they're all gone. We're all still going to suffer from it. Millennials are going to make sure the world knows who to blame, and will be successful in doing so thanks to the internet for archiving everything. This golden age of comic book movies. I think when this goes south, it's going to go hard, like pirate movie hard. Those things went out of style in the 1950s and you haven't seen pirates on the screen regularly since. Obvious random exceptions. It's like westerns all over again. There was a time when a new cowboys movie came out every month. Now there are barely movies that take place in the far west. Dabbing being revived from its ancient roots. I imagine a movie about a boy named Jack, who has to perform the deepest, longest, dankest dab to rescue his dog from the evil Lady Marbles. You must travel into the deepest and dankest woods to learn the move. Follow the dreaded sound. In the distance yeet. Honestly, I think it'll be seen a lot like the 80s, a decade following intense turmoil, marked by anxieties, creativity, strange, and completely wrong ideas about the future, and ultimately, a calm before the storm of upheaval that was the 90s early 2000s. For the 90s, it was the death of presidential dignity, Clinton, the death of venerated American family values, Simpsons, Married with Children, etc., and the beginnings of an acknowledgement of the growing disconnect between Christianity and the scientific worldview. The 80s had no idea how computing, communications, and the internet would all come together to drastically alter our culture, our economy, our religion, and ourselves. They were afraid and hopeful, but of all the wrong things. Instead of the gas shortages and looming menace of communism and social unrest of the 60s and 70s, we're here on the wings of 9/11 and the war on terror. Instead of synth dreams and vector visions of a cyberpunk future, we're dreaming of Black Mirror, standing back and watching the birth of AI. In my own opinion, for whatever it's worth, we're less than 2 decades from a technological tectonic shift that'll make the internet look unremarkable in its effect on culture. This is a time of upheaval and fear, hope, but regardless of what we think we're afraid of, I think we're actually seeing the twilight of Christianity, Islam, capitalism, even humanism, and maybe even Homo sapiens itself, at least as we understand it. There will be people as we know them for a long while yet, I suspect. But this is our last decade of being alone here on this planet as the sole form of intelligence. Fear and upheaval aside, I think this decade will be seen much like New York in the Matrix, the height of raw humanity, standing on our own 2 feet, the last, and possibly greatest period our race had while living something resembling the lives we evolved to live, before we can augment ourselves and change our reality beyond recognition. Maybe like in San Junipero though, we'll recreate aspects of this to live on in an idealized form. Who knows? A strange virtual vacation to explore the 2010s, instead of popping in a John Carpenter movie to remember the 80s. Guess we'll see. I know I'm excited to be alive now though. Never been a more exciting and crazy time to be alive. This is probably the best answer here. I like your comments on cultural attitudes as well. And I definitely think a lot of 2010s culture was inspired by post 9/11 anxiety. I'd argue even the rise of the superhero film genre in recent times is due to people's hopeless belief that maybe there is some pure good out there due to all the very public moral controversies of the war on terror. The general aesthetic that's popular, like when you think 80s, you think VHS footage, synth pop, vibrant colors, baggy clothes. Well, when grandpa is talking about the 2010s, you'll be thinking about super HD footage, minimalism, trap music, wearing muted colors, and undercuts. A conservative politician unwittingly falls in love with a DACA recipient and is faced with choosing between his lobbyist supporters and the love of his life with bills that threaten the very fabric of their relationship. Better wording. Also, the story would be more gripping and poignant if the relationship was extramarital. Hahaha. I can just see Hollywood pooping out some politically socially charged turd like that. Don't forget the misunderstanding that causes the third act breakup. Those are always super fun and not at all predictable and boring. You kids heard of the good old days? You know, the 2010s, the golden age of American consumerism. No one had any idea that they were only 10 short years from the water wars. People had choices for where they got their food and bought their clothing. Your career was your choice and not mandated by the aptitude tests. Oh, and did I mention that the water wars hadn't started? That means you could just go to the kitchen and turn the faucet on for water. Any temperature you want. At your fingertips. What's that, grandpa? What's what? What's a faucet? Everyone's desire to be a backpacker and travel to beaches and climb mountains with dogs as their guide. Elon Musk. Probably my least favorite aftershave, to be honest. Probably 2012 and the whole the world is ending because the Mayan calendar thing. I'm gonna show my kids that movie 2012 and tell them I survived that. The rise of anti-heroes and dystopias in popular culture. Movies aren't just rehashing after rehashing of Jesus saving mankind from the embodiment of evil anymore. The top grossing movies of the early 2000s were good. Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Pirates of the Caribbean, Chronicles of Narnia. But they were all telling the same good versus evil story. There are still a lot of good versus evil stories. But we're also getting a lot more stories like Inception, Deadpool, Black Panther and Hunger Games, and the ongoing series that have darkened too. Batman and Star Wars movies are more complicated. I think people will look back on this decade as a turning point. When robots did not do this job or that task. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.